only thing better than growing your own food is eating food fresh from the garden. And out of all the things I have planted for winter, kale is the first thing to be ready to harvest before we've even reached winter. I want to show you my 2 favourite ways to cook with kale in 10 minutes or under. Let's go. Kale has made a name for itself as a superfood, packed full of protein, calcium, iron, fibre, vitamin A, C and anti-cancer properties. This is Tuscan kale. We are also growing curly purple kale. They can all be cooked in a similar way. If you're growing your own, it's easy to harvest. Just cut or break off the outer leaves near the base. If you leave the middle leaves as they are, it will keep on growing back. You can eat kale raw, chopped up in a salad. Many recommend, if you're not cooking it, that you give the leaves a massage first with your hands in some olive oil to make it more tender and tastier. You can also very simply chuck it in a smoothie. But today we're talking about cooking, and the first way I'm going to show you is a simple stir-fried kale. Once you've washed and dried your leaves, chop it up into whichever size best suits your dish. It'll shrink a bit, but not as much as other greens. Get your wok or fry pan nice and hot before you start frying. Here I've used a dollop of butter, but if you want a healthier option, go with olive oil. Add a bit of minced garlic and a sprinkling of salt. The salt and garlic are key here to bringing out that yummy flavour. It only takes a couple of minutes in the wok before it's ready to be eaten. If your oil or butter is hot enough, and assuming you've dried the leaves well, it will have a subtle crunch, which is what makes kale really stand out from other greens. You can serve it up as a side dish with any meal that goes with garlicky flavours, or you can add other veggies in the wok and fry them up together. You can also add it to other dishes, like I've done here with pasta. I've added it to some ravioli with Napoli sauce. It gave it that extra burst of nutrition and a really yummy texture. Next, I'm going to show you how to make kale chips. Before I do, a little reminder, click subscribe if you haven't yet. I will show you a new tour of the garden here in Melbourne every single month, and more I'll be showing you different ways to cook with food that you're growing. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button. It'll help everyone else find it. Let's keep going. So, for kale chips, you can start exactly the same way. Make sure your kale is completely dry, then chop it up in chip-sized pieces. Coat with a drizzle of olive oil and a sprinkling of salt, and make sure the whole lot is evenly covered. Spread them out on a tray, chuck them in the oven at around 200 degrees Celsius. 10 minutes later, your chips will be ready. Do a little test first to make sure they're crunchy, and if not, they might need a little bit longer, or you might need to turn your temperature up a bit. 10 minutes later, crunchy, delicious. Messy. Even though I have already harvested this plant quite a few times, if you chop out the outer leaves, keep the inner leaves in there, and it just keeps regenerating. If you're wanting to cook with kale but you haven't actually tried growing it yet, give it a go. You don't need a big vegetable garden, you just need a couple of pots and some good soil. You can buy both of those from your local nursery or hardware store, and they can be very cheap to get started, and you can have this on speed dial, ready to go anytime you feel like cooking with it. I have just worked out that what I thought was broccolini growing all throughout my garden is actually broccoletti, which is different, and it's starting to be ready to harvest. So I'm learning to cook with broccoletti at the moment. When I've found the best recipes, I will share them with you. But in the meantime, if you've got any good tips, it's also called rapini, please drop me a link in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to hear your recipes. That is what I'm learning to cook with at the moment.